Hi, all. Sorry about not being able to be there today. I have some GI issues where I have to remain in my apartment. Otherwise, it could get not nice. Anyway, okay, so what I'd like to go over is the main focus today is administrative. Go over the syllabus, lab schedule, required items, etc. Then also I want to go over the first part of your dry lab. Now you're going to have four dry labs. It's all under one title, however. It's called Unit 1 Dry Labs. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about admin here first. Okay, so this is the syllabus. Now, I'm not going to go over the whole thing. Most students want to know how to get a hold of me and how I grade, uh, basically. So that's what I want to focus on. And the syllabus is on Canvas under modules admin or Unit 0. Okay, so prerequisites for this course. You need to have a Chem 305 or equivalent. Now, if you are coming from Sierra, that would be a Chem 2A class. I'm not sure what Sac State equivalent is. Obviously, Sac City's is 305. Basically, it's an introduction to general chemistry for allied health career paths. Okay. And this is my contact information. Lectures in room 30, in room 105. I'm not sure how close the prior class is to my starting time of 10:50. If it's close, sometimes it's kind of a pain. It's a shuffle of one class going in, the other class coming in. Um, and then lab is up in third floor, room 315. Now, this is not your old 305 room, which used to be the 306 room. We moved it across the hall to 315. Okay. Now, the lab hours are basically 3 hours, 1:30 to 4:30-ish. Frequently, we don't go that long. A couple of the labs are longer. The second wet lab and the third wet lab are long labs. They'll get closer to 4:30, but all the other labs won't last to 4:30. Okay, there's two ways to get a hold of me. One is via Canvas, or the other is Outlook. Outlook, my email address is Fergus T, Fergus T, and it's a standard Sac City domain. Of course, if you go from Canvas messaging, it'll go directly. You don't have to worry about my email address. If you would like to text me, I can be text. And I check my texts constantly. So that's a good way if you want a quick answer. If it's regarding a problem, I want you to use email and do a screen copy of the problem so that so we know what we're talking about. Otherwise, it's hard to explain things if we're not looking at the same thing. We can also have a private Zoom lesson. My office hours are Monday, Wednesday, 10, but it's by appointment. Actually, it's any time we have free time by appointment. Okay, let's see. All right, so let's go ahead and go on here. Now, this class is basically, well, it's a continuation of 305, but it's basically the organic and biochemistry aspect of allied health. Now, some of you are going to have a significantly more biochemistry in classes that follow, depending on your career path. If you're a PA candidate, for example, or a NP candidate, for example, they're probably going to require you to take some more specific biochemistry only classes, but you'll get both in here. Okay, these are the also called SLOs. Now, the frustrating thing for me is the textbook for this class is a very good textbook, but they don't require it in 305. It says optional. I'm going to leave it as optional in here. If you can find a used one, by all means, grab it and keep it as a reference book for you. It's really quite a good book. Okay, required materials. Okay, the lab manual. You need to buy that because that's where the labs are, except for labs, dry labs 1, 2, and 3. Those are in another version. I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, you need safety goggles. Hopefully you still have those from 305. And that's basically Uvex Stealth. And I've been using those for 20-ish years. They're really good goggles. You should cover as much flesh as possible, hence the lab coat and long pants. If you don't wear, now as it gets towards summer, days are going to get hot. And a lot of times you'll be wearing shorts. Excuse me, that's fine, except be forewarned that if you get acid on flesh, you're going to have to wash it. And if it lands on your knee, for example, you're going to have to wash your knee with cold water. You need a calculator. For 305, you need one that does these guys. For this class, you just need a calculator. Then, of course, there's a lab coat. Now, the cool thing about having a lab coat is I give you extra credit if you decorate your lab coat. So keep that in mind. If you haven't bought one yet or going to buy one, excuse me. So, and you can do it as a group, get together with your friends and decorate them all together. You can tie dye. Mine, as you saw on the home screen on Canvas, that's all tie dyed. But you can also embroider. You can use fabric pens. A lot of cool things. Now, this class is not a trivial class at all. There's a lot of material in this class. It's a 5-unit class. So the expectation is you're spending a fair chunk of time per week. Now, this is a process by which most successful students in this class, those are the A and B students, particularly the A students, follow. Okay, they look. They download the slides per unit. They watch the video from last semester. I record all my video lectures. Take notes. And watch current video. Now, this is a in-person lecture. Last semester was a Zoom lecture. But this is a process that most people follow that do well in this class. Basically, you download the slides, print them out, Take notes on it as you watch the video from last semester. And then when you watch in person, when you watch the current lecture, you can refine those notes because I'll be going over the same slides, different annotation, however. Okay. All right. I'm going to be taking attendance the first 2 weeks of class because of has to do with something called census. It's complicated, but anyway, after that, I'm not going to be taking attendance. Okay, as far as lab stuff goes, you're going to have a comprehensive handwritten pre-lab. I'm going to have a separate lecture on that. Each pre-lab requires that to be done before you step foot in the class and into the lab. Think of it as your ticket to do the lab. Okay, dry labs do not require a handwritten pre-lab. It's only for wet labs. Wet labs mean when glassware is out and chemicals are out. Dry labs are basically worksheets with me being around to answer questions for you. Each lab, wet or dry, is worth 10 points. It's due the following week, except for the aspirin synthesis lab. That's you have multiple weeks for that. Okay, as far as dry labs etiquette, if there's no glassware out, you don't have to wear goggles. Now, usually the rooms are very cold, so frequently people wear their lab coats because they're cold. You don't need goggles for a dry lab. For wet labs, no exceptions, you have to wear your goggles and your lab coat. No exceptions. You can rent both of those from the stockroom. You also need closed-toed shoes for dry labs. No flip-flops or anything like that because stuff has been spilled on the floor and not necessarily cleaned up very well. Okay, you're going to have a research project that's worth half a test. Half of a test. It's a big deal. And it's also on something you're interested in. That could be drug addiction, nutrition, food additive, chemistry. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I've got some examples of past posters that people have done. It's a poster plus 1,000-word essay accompanying it. Okay, I would encourage you big time to get in a study group. There's a lot of research to show that students who are in study groups achieve better than students that are working by themselves. I know some of you are loners and don't want to have anything to do with anyone else, but I'm just telling you the research. Okay, each test is going to be worth 100 points. We have 4 tests. Your project is worth 50 points, half a test. Labs are worth 10 points per lab, and there's approximately 12, but whatever this comes out to be. It could be 110 or 130, whatever, 10 points per lab. That's dry lab and wet lab. Your first dry lab, though, is in a bundle, and it's worth 20 points. Okay, there are 2 documents that you need to upload by the first week of class. That's the lab waiver and the lab safety contract. Both of these are available digitally, and these will be the easiest 20 points you'll ever get in this class. I also allow test corrections. What I mean by that is if you miss a problem and you redo it and turn it back in, I'll give you half credit. If you get a D or F, I will replace your grade with your final grade. That's test 4. assuming it's higher. And I go 90, um, 60, 70, 80, 90 as far as grades go, grading, and I also round. Okay, if you have an accommodation, obviously we need to exchange information on that. Um, these are pretty generic survival tips, but they're pretty valid. Okay, and these are some of the, now in your textbook, assuming you have one, this class really starts on chapter 12, but you need to be able to do chapter 4. Chapter 4 is doing Lewis dot structures because you're going to be doing structures for the whole semester. The whole semester, starting with day 1. So knowing how to do a Lewis dot structure is extremely important. Okay, and then basically, okay, those are how the units are broken up if you're looking at your textbook. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is go over looking at the lab schedule. So this is Monday date. Okay, so we are doing these for the next few weeks. It's Dry Lab Unit 1, it's on Canvas. Files. Okay, for your first wet lab, that's going to be the week of February 9th. It's also your first test. And that's when you're going to require the pre-lab because it's a wet lab. So on this date, we're doing both a dry lab and a wet lab. So the wet lab, you're going to need a pre-lab. The dry lab, you don't need one. Okay, so that's basically the lab schedule and the lecture topics that go along with it. All your tests are going to be in person, and they are going to be on Wednesday. Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover administratively. So I'm going to save this